It was the typical pre-Christmas office party. No way to avoid it, but it wasn't exactly the crowd I wanted to socialize with. I was pretty sure the champagne had a twist-off cap, and the hors d'oeuvres were straight from the frozen section of some discount store. The only real perks of attending were escaping the phone for a couple of hours and leaving early when it was over. The conversation bounced between work and the usual holiday chatter. "You don't look very festive, Jordan," Janet, from the new products group, said as she walked over. "I'm not," I replied. "Forced fun isn't fun at all." "Scrooge," she teased. "Where's your holiday spirit?" "I'm not a Scrooge. I donate to charity, give my team time off, and don't run around saying bah humbug. Plus, I'm Jewish. Christmas isn't my thing. Hanukkah was early this year, and it's already over. And I'm not thrilled with how it's been turned into a Jewish version of Christmas either." My little rant caught the attention of a few more people. Laura from my team, clearly unsteady from too much cheap champagne, wobbled over. Henry, from billing, was wearing a ridiculous elf hat with fur trim and a pom-pom on the end. It was clear they were all in the mood to poke fun at me. "You're such a Scrooge," Laura said, slurring. "You live alone, don't enjoy Christmas, you probably have gruel for dinner," she giggled, nudging Janet. Henry, still sober enough to participate, jumped in. "Just because you're Jewish doesn't mean you can't enjoy a party. What's wrong with celebrating a bit? And what's wrong with gifts? Santa Claus isn't even religious." "Actually, he was," I said. "Santa Claus started as Saint Nicholas, and you don't become a saint without the church's approval. That makes him a religious figure." Janet shrugged. "Maybe, but today, Santa is just about the fun. What's religious about a guy making toys at the North Pole, wearing a red suit, and saying ho, ho, ho? He brings joy to kids every year. He makes retailers happy every year," I countered. The modern image of Santa is mostly thanks to Coca-Cola ads from the 1930s and 40s. No one knows what the real St. Nicholas looked like. And the Coke ads were inspired by Clement Moore's poem, and he was just a writer getting paid for it. "Scrooge, Scrooge, Scrooge," Laura chanted, and soon everyone joined in. "I'm not a Scrooge," I muttered. "This is ridiculous. We're arguing about a fictional character. St. Nicholas passed centuries ago, and Santa Claus is just a story." "Oh," Laura teased, "he doesn't believe in Santa." "And I don't believe in Hanukkah Harry either," I added, referring to the fictional character Jewish parents sometimes use to calm kids jealous of Santa. "Wait, you don't believe in Santa?" Henry sounded shocked. "Of course not. No one over the age of 6 or 7 does. There's a difference between enjoying a story and believing in it. You can believe in the spirit of giving, but not in a real person. And let's be honest, the spirit of giving is in third place behind the spirit of buying and the spirit of getting." Janet spoke up. "I'm over 7, and I still believe in Santa. Maybe not the way I did when I was a kid, but I think there's still some magic to Christmas." "Oh." I couldn't help but sound sarcastic. "So, do you send a list of all your wishes to Santa at the North Pole?" "Well, sort of," she admitted. "There are always things I want that I know I can't get, but I still put them on a list, like a fur coat, a tennis bracelet, or a new car, and hang it on the fridge. I figure, if anyone can make the impossible happen, it's Santa. Then, I hope that by the next year, I'll somehow get what I want, if I've been nice, of course." "Interesting," I said. "I heard the best way to get a fur coat is to be naughty." I smirked at her, my turn to tease. Janet flushed slightly. "You know what I meant. You're just being a Scrooge again. Anyway," she continued, "it worked last year." She held out her arm. "I got a really nice Christmas bonus, and here's that tennis bracelet I mentioned." "And you think Santa got that for you?" I said, "instead of you buying it yourself at the jewelry store?" "Come on." "No, I think it's a way to put it," Henry chimed in. Maybe her Santa list is a way of motivating her to work hard for her goals. Or maybe there is a Santa who makes gifts for adults, like tennis bracelets, and handles impossible requests. Yeah, that sounds nice, said Laura. I think Santa makes time for us grown-ups too. So I told him I really needed some new outfits, and there's a big box under the tree from my mom that I'm opening first because she knows exactly what I like to wear. You told him? I couldn't keep my voice from rising. Sure. I ran into him at the mall, taking a break from the little kids. So I told him what I wanted. He even asked if I'd been naughty or nice, and I said mostly nice. He said he'd see what he could do. I don't believe this, I muttered. Here we are, 4 grown adults, and 3 of us are acting like Santa exists. How much of that cheap champagne have you all had? Okay, you're just messing with me, right? Time to have some fun with Jordan for not celebrating Christmas? I've been drinking ginger ale, and I'm serious, Henry said. I get if you don't want to embrace the religious side of the holiday, but Santa Claus represents something else. Yeah, greed. Like I said earlier. Janet replied, there's nothing wrong with wanting things for yourself. Greed is when you want everything for yourself. Yeah, Jordan. Don't you want something for yourself? Laura asked. Something impossible, maybe. Something only Santa could get you? Henry added. Oh, I want plenty of things. Some impossible, some just the result of hard work. The latter's better for a person than being handed things, I said, folding my arms and looking at them. Okay. So you want some impossible things. Why don't you ask Santa for one? Just one thing? Janet stared at me. Because it's foolish. Because it won't make a difference. Because it's a waste of time. Because we're not letting you out of here until you write a letter to Santa Claus, Laura said, grabbing my arm. What? You've had too much to drink, I said, trying to pull away. But she held on, and that made Janet grab me too. From somewhere, Henry pulled out a pen and a sheet of paper. Right, he said. Pick something totally impossible. Something you couldn't have unless Santa brings it. Otherwise, we're calling you Scrooge from now on. It seemed like there was no way out without giving in. So, I picked up the pen and began, Dear Santa. They hovered behind me. Do you mind? I said, voice firm, and they took a step back. I wrote, Dear Santa, I've been living alone for a long time. My house needs some company. Please bring me someone for Christmas. Blonde, about 5 feet 4 inches. Make her an artist, someone who's comfortable with her body and enjoys life. Very truly yours, Jordan. There. That seemed impossible enough. What did you ask for? Janet asked. None of your business, I replied, folding the letter and slipping it into my pocket. It was too late to mail it, and there was no point in tracking down a mall Santa at this hour. Besides, I didn't want anyone reading my silly, spur-of-the-moment request. At that moment, the lights in the conference room flickered, signaling that it was 4 p.m. and both the party and the workday were over. We'd be back on the 26th, of course. I drove home through barely any traffic. Most companies had shut down around noon, either officially or unofficially. Their holiday parties had already happened earlier in the month. Christmas Eve afternoon seemed too late for that sort of thing. Maybe I would have been more in the party spirit if we hadn't waited until the last minute, but that wasn't up to me. I'd thought about grabbing pizza or Chinese takeout, traditional Christmas Eve food, but it was too early when I was heading home, and by the time I got hungry, everything had closed. Even the Chinese places nearby had shut down, their business dropping off. Chinatown, with its Buddhist and Confucian population, would have had a different story, but that was too far to drive. It was the one night of the year you couldn't get a pizza delivered. None of that improved my mood. The empty fridge didn't help either. I had some lettuce for a salad, but no leftovers. I made do with canned soup and a frozen entree reheated in the microwave. At least it wasn't gruel, I thought, recalling the Scrooge jokes from my coworkers earlier. TV didn't offer much more than the fridge, though at least it had reruns. St. Olaf's 1989 Christmas concert, for example. And The Little Drummer Boy. How do you stretch a 90-second song into a full TV program? I got through some reading, checked the weather report, until they switched to NORAD's update on an unidentified flying object leaving the North Pole, and turned in early. For some reason, I didn't sleep well. Christmas Eve usually means no traffic, unless you're near a church with midnight services, but that wasn't the case for me. A noise outside woke me up in the middle of the night, and it took a while to get back to sleep. I hoped it wasn't raccoons messing with the garbage. That meant I woke up late on Christmas Day, around mid-morning. I hadn't eaten much for dinner, and now I was hungry. I knew I had cereal and eggs, so I wouldn't be scavenging for something. Later, a few grocery stores would open, and I could restock. So, I hopped out of bed and went straight to the kitchen to scramble some eggs. Or almost straight there. I walked past the living room and did a double take. The space in front of my couch, which had been empty the night before, was now completely filled with a giant fir tree, decorated for the season, surrounded by piles of brightly wrapped gifts. Forgetting about the kitchen entirely, I walked into the living room. At first, I thought I must have sleepwalked and ended up in a neighbor's house. But everything else looked familiar: my house, my living room, my furniture, just with a Christmas tree and presents added. Had I left the doors unlocked for some friends to pull a prank after yesterday's argument? No, they were locked, and the security system was still on. They didn't have the code, and even if they copied my keys, they all had their own families to be with. They wouldn't waste their time on a prank like this. And where would they have found a tree and presents so late on Christmas Eve, anyway? I couldn't blame my neighbors either. I barely knew them, and they wouldn't have a reason to do this. I was completely confused. Maybe the presents would give me a clue. I grabbed the first one within reach. It was light. The wrapping had toy soldiers marching with candy canes as bayonets. On one corner was a tag that simply read, "From Santa Claus." I picked up another, then another. Each one had different wrapping but the same tag, "From Santa Claus." Not much to go on. I decided to open them and see if the contents offered any answers. The first package held a shallow white box under the paper. I opened it and found, what? Brightly colored fabric. I grabbed at it and realized it was a pair of women's panties. The box contained a dozen pairs, each a different color. There were no brand markings, no store labels, no clue about who sent them or who they were for. I certainly didn't wear them. The next box contained more women's lingerie, garter belts, in multiple colors and sizes. After that, a box of hosiery, old-fashioned nylons, not pantyhose, in black. And another box with black fishnet stockings. What had I actually asked Santa for in my letter? A model? Was she hidden in one of the boxes, with the rest containing clothes? Or was this some prank from my so-called friends, perhaps an inflatable doll in the last box? Very funny. But they hadn't seen what I'd written to Santa. How could they have gotten that idea? And would they really use Christmas for such a tasteless joke? I didn't think that was likely. I kept opening boxes. More women's clothes. Short skirts, tight pullover tops. Several boxes of shoes, all high heels, none practical, 3-inch heels or more. Then, in one box, something I couldn't quite identify. It was mostly white lace, but it felt heavier than fabric. When I unfolded it, I realized it was a bra. I'd never seen anything like it. The cups were so large that a basketball could have fit inside. The design made sense now: wide straps, extra hooks, reinforced eyes. A small tag read, "Titanium reinforced for maximum support." Titanium? Was steel not enough? How much weight was this bra meant to support? There were still more boxes to open, more than 24 to start with. More lingerie, more suggestive outerwear. Then, I found another bra like the first, but black and cut lower in the front. I tried to picture what a woman who wore this bra might look like in an outfit designed for it, but I couldn't even begin to guess. The outfit appeared in the next box, black, with an open front, held together by laces that would leave no room for doubt about the cleavage. A few more boxes contained cosmetics, hairbrushes, and other such items. Santa's do-it-yourself woman kit seemed to be missing only one thing: the woman herself. Typical of a Christmas morning assembly, right? How many kids found their bikes or train sets missing parts? There was just one box left, far underneath the tree. Too small to be an inflatable doll, so I ruled out that sort of joke. Maybe it had the phone number of the woman who would wear all these clothes. Right, as if. I was almost starting to believe in Santa Claus, considering how many other possibilities I had already ruled out. I opened the last package and found something different. No jewelry, no clothes, no cosmetics. It looked like an old-fashioned jack-in-the-box. I tried to open it, but the lid was too tight. The label was a little different from the others, reading "A very special Christmas surprise from Santa Claus." I was already surprised enough, but not by this package. I started turning the handle. Usually, those things played "Pop Goes the Weasel" and popped open when the music reached the right point. This one, however, played "Santa Claus is Coming to Town." I thought that was copyrighted. Maybe the makers of this jack-in-the-box had paid the royalties. As expected, when the music hit town, the box popped open, and out sprang not a jack but a plastic Santa Claus on a spring. At the same time, the box played a tinny ho, 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 and burst into a cloud of red and green glitter, spraying directly into my face. The air was filled with the scent of pine needles, baking pies, roasting turkeys, and smoked chestnuts, all the smells of Christmas. It smelled incredible. I couldn't help but take a deep breath. And then, I passed out. I must have been out for several hours when I woke up. It had been late morning when I went downstairs, intending to have breakfast, but now the light coming through the window made it look like mid-afternoon. I assumed it was still Christmas Day. The first emotion I felt was anger. Someone had gone to a lot of trouble to embarrass me with a stupid joke, and then they had drugged me. I wondered if I still had my stereo and TV. I figured I'd better check and then call the police. When I tried to get up from where I'd collapsed on the floor after the Santa-in-the-box dust, I couldn't. My body didn't respond the way I expected. A huge weight was holding me down. No, more accurately, the weight was my upper body. I could move my arms and legs, but I felt weaker than I should. It was probably the drug's effect, I thought. I pulled my face out of the pile of wrapping paper I had landed in and tried again. This time, I managed to get to my knees, but that was it. What was holding me down? Still unable to see well, I blinked several times to clear the remaining dust from my eyes. That's when I finally understood. It wasn't a weight holding me down, it was my own upper body. Enormous breasts, just the size for that oversized bra, were bulging out of my chest. No wonder I couldn't get up easily. This was going to take some effort. After a moment of frantic thoughts running through my mind, I finally managed to lift the heavy weight of my breasts with my hands, using my back muscles to push myself upright. I stood, but my back ached from the effort. Gradually, I let go of my breasts, and the strain on my back increased. Where had I put those bras? I grabbed the white one and started trying to get into it. The cups fit perfectly, and the straps were already adjusted, but fastening all the hooks took some time. Thankfully, the titanium-reinforced design made it easier to manage. I looked down to see if there were any other changes, but all I could see was my chest. So, I slipped my hand into my boxers, now barely hanging onto my hips, and felt the obvious changes. Wide hips, a 22-inch waist, no half measures here, it seemed. Santa had really gone all in. The boxers were about to fall off, so I took them off and put on a pair of panties from the first box. It felt very strange until I realized they weren't just high-cut, they were thongs. I tried a few more pairs. Same thing. Were all the panties like this? Would I have to go around with my butt exposed even when wearing clothes? And those short skirts, there were no long ones, would leave very little to the imagination. I was really starting to wish I had asked Santa for something more conservative. But who could have known? Somewhat dressed, I walked over to the fireplace to check myself out in the mirror above the mantel. It wasn't a full-length mirror, but I could at least see my face. Good cheekbones, medium-length blonde hair, blue eyes. I looked like what I had once called forgettably pretty. The kind of girl who might get mistaken for another bit-part actress, but not someone you'd turn down if you had the chance. Then I noticed a plain brown folder on the mantel. Had it been there before I started opening gifts? I couldn't remember. It was easy to overlook with the Christmas tree and all the presents. Balancing my new body, I walked carefully over to the couch to open it. Inside, there was a magazine, a stack of photos, and a couple of sheets of paper. The magazine was an issue of Buxom's. From May of the following year. The cover featured a photo of me, the new me. The caption read, Viva Marissa. The babe with the beach ball chests. Alliteration, apparently. It was a proof copy, the inside only contained pages about me, though the text was in gibberish, likely unfinished. But the photos were enough. They made me blush. They would have made my mother blush. My great-grandmother would have probably rolled over in her grave at the sight. Was this what I was going to do from now on? It certainly seemed so. The stack of photos was my new modeling portfolio, creative, if you had the right kind of imagination. Apparently, the new me did. As I flipped through it, a wave of embarrassment hit, but then I realized my new body had different reactions. Looking down, I noticed that while the titanium-reinforced bra was designed for support, it was no match for the size and firmness of my pointers, which were pushing through the fabric. What good would those tight pullovers do if this happened outside? I wouldn't just stop traffic, there would be accidents. A strange sensation between my legs joined the reaction from my pointers, and I couldn't even remember when these photos were taken. I quickly set the portfolio aside before I got too distracted. The first sheet of paper was an appointment calendar for the next 6 weeks, from an agency. I was scheduled 4 to 6 days a week with photographers for Buxom's. And mega jugs, along with all-day video shoots for projects like it was the Chest of Times and Halloween '99, Jump Out and Say Chest. The pay of $200 an hour, minus commission, was a small comfort, at least I wouldn't go hungry. The last thing in the folder was a piece of paper with a cheerful letterhead that read Santa's Workshop, LP, North Pole, decorated with candy canes, Christmas trees, and a little hut with elves working inside. I could have sworn the elves were moving on the page, hammering and planing. It was unsettling. I began to read. Dear Marissa, I just wanted you to know I got your letter, or rather Jordan's letter. I always try to deliver what those who write to me sincerely want, even if they're too old for toys. I hope you like what I delivered to you. I suspect it isn't exactly what you anticipated. However, you must realize you weren't exactly on the nice list either. Telling people I don't exist? Really, how could I put you on the nice list if you do that? Sometimes, those on the naughty list get nothing. They used to get coal, but the EPA put a stop to that, at least until I find a low-sulfur source at the North Pole. But never mind. Sometimes, I find a way to give them what they ask for, but in a way that reminds them of their misbehavior. I hope you've learned your lesson. Just to show I'm not mad, I'll be delivering more of the kinds of clothes you need, especially those bras, each Christmas. However, in light of your new profession, I suspect you'll be on the naughty list for quite some time. Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas. Santa Claus. If you appreciated this story and wish to show your support, don't forget to join me on Patreon for exclusive content.